Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Timo Parker. I'm a vocal coach and I'm here to help you to improve your singing voice. As you might have noticed, it's a bit of a different setup today. Hair is closed and also the zoom is far more out because I want to talk about the upper body, specifically the sternum, and how a high sternum can give you instant results in getting higher notes with less effort. I recently had a class with one of my students, shout out to Dagmar, who had great questions about the sternum, and they were so great that I decided to make a video about it because I'm sure that a lot of you guys have a similar question like she did. If you've watched previous videos on this channel, and if not, go over to this playlist and check them out now, you know that I've been talking about a high sternum for high notes. And that's such a great tool because it helps us to keep our thyroid cartilage a bit lower. I just give you a brief summary why a low thyroid cartilage or larynx, the larynx is the thyroid cartilage, the larynx is actually the whole construct in your throat, and the thyroid cartilage just the thing where the two cartilages come together, used sometimes visible in men, the Adam's apple. So this thing we can move in our throat, so it can go up and down. When we swallow, it goes up, and when we yawn, it goes down. And it can go down all the way down here to the ugulum, because this is where the yawning muscle attaches. So when this muscle contracts, it pulls the thyroid cartilage low. And that is so helpful because we are making sure that first of all we are not hitting any tissue or anything that can damage our vocal cords, but also it helps us to increase the distance between the vocal cords and false vocal cords. In between them there is a ventricle where we create the sound. And this laryngeal ventricle, that's the proper name for it, if we yawn, it opens up. So there are a lot of benefits for a low thyroid cartilage or low larynx. And I know that the sound aesthetics might not be appealing for everyone, but it's just a training sound. So if you're into pop, rock and jazz sound, I would still encourage you to train with a low thyroid cartilage, because what happens for most people is that when they sing higher, the thyroid cartilage goes up and up and up all the way to the point where it can't go any higher. And then you're hitting other tissue, maybe your higher bone, and then your thyroid cartilage gets compressed. So a lot of downsides if you're not able to at least keep the thyroid cartilage in the same position in your throat. And that's why it's good to train the extreme and try to lower it. And the yawning muscle needs a bit of time in order to get stronger. And a little shortcut, so to say, in order to use your yawning muscle very efficiently from the beginning is to learn the movement of a high sternum. Because when we look at my sternum here and I raise it, we can already see that the distance between my ugulum and my thyroid cartilage increases. So very important, the yawning muscle is attached to the thyroid cartilage and in the inside of your sternum. So that means if you're, for example, doing some back bendings like this and you push your sternum away from your body, you're actually increasing the distance because it's attached from the inside, which makes the pathway for the muscle a bit longer. And this way it is very hard for the yawning muscle to contract. So when we are training a high sternum, if we want to use this movement, first of all, make sure you're not back bending. So nothing like this. Whenever we push the chest further away from our neck and from our chin, maybe even past the chin, that's not a good thing to do because we are stretching our yawning muscle and then it is really hard for the yawning muscle to work. So now, how do we find this movement? What is the feeling? What is the command to do in order to find it? So sometimes to first of all experience the feeling of a high sternum is to actually incorporate your shoulders into the movement, which we don't want to do later, but for now we could try. So for example, when we shrug up our shoulders like this and we do the extreme version, our sternum is also coming up. Just make sure that you're not just using your shoulders, you also want to use your full sternum. So if I do just shoulders, the shoulder comes up and you see my hand is not moving. But if I incorporate the sternum into this movement, for example, you see now my hand is moving. And now when I just use the shoulder, my hand is not moving. So it's a movement of the complete upper body and it feels a bit like you have a string attached to the back here and someone pulls you up there. And if you do this movement properly, you might feel the following sensations. So first of all, you will feel that between your shoulder blades, here, if you can put your hand between your shoulder blades, you will feel that there's an expansion happening. So this expansion between the shoulder blade, if you feel such sensation, that's a very good sign. So that's the first step, to try to, maybe together with the shoulders, just try to lift your full upper body and make sure if you put a hand on your sternum that this hand is moving with you and not just the shoulders. So if I just use my shoulders, you see my hand is not moving. And if I use everything, you can see that my hand is going up and down. So this is something that you want to find first. If you found it, make sure you take the shoulders out of this little movement. So instead of doing everything, you just try to do the same movement without the shoulders. So for example, my shoulders stay relaxed. And you see, for example, now when I talk to you, I can still execute this movement because I don't need the breath to lift the sternum. These are internal muscles that pull up the sternum. So make sure that you don't have to inhale all the time. If it's a trigger to find it for the first time, that's fine. But make sure you can execute this movement without the breath. Another possibility to find it would be to extend your arms overhead and you try to reach for something above you. And then you can already see that through that reach, the sternum comes up. So you might have to experiment a little bit with different movement, but basically we want to have an uplifting, elevating movement in the upper body, especially in the sternum. So I've talked already about breathing, on the breathing process when you're singing. If you haven't watched it yet, you can check it out here. Basically what I'm talking about in this video is that you should open your ribs in order to sustain your breath for longer phrases when you're singing. And even though the rib cage is maybe slightly engaged into this lifting action of the sternum, these are two different movements, because when I open my rib cage, just to the side, my sternum doesn't necessarily lift. And if I lift my sternum, yes, my rib cage opens slightly, but it's not necessarily to the same degree as it would do if I just open up my rib cage. So make sure, if you've watched this previous video already and you're working on an open rib cage, that you can isolate these two movements so that you are able to lift your sternum and also open your rib cage independently. And as I mentioned before, the rib cage is slightly engaged into this raising of the sternum. So you will feel a movement there, but this movement for me at least feels more like it's going, they're opening up in this direction, and when you're opening the ribs to the side, then it's into this direction. So make sure you can differentiate between these two movements. So once you found this action of lifting your sternum, make sure you try to get more and more relaxed over time. It is pretty likely that, especially in the beginning, if you've never done that before, that your stomach is going to tense up, other parts in your body might tense up, and that's something you want to get rid of, because any kind of tension is not helping us for singing. First of all, let's just try to find this movement dry in a sense of not singing, and you just try to find the movement, and then what you can do is putting it on notes, on songs, and you try to keep the sternum elevated. So for example, old time classic on this channel, whole tone exercise, we just sing one note, go one step higher, a whole step higher, and we come back. And what we can do here, for example, let's start around here. And what we want to do is we sing the first note, we already lift the sternum about, let's say, 50 to 60%. And for the second note, we lift it all the way up, as high as it can go without tensing up. So for example, let's do one more. And I keep the yawning sensation, and because my sternum goes up, my yawning muscle has to work less. And especially in the beginning, that is a huge help, and it can actually be a shortcut to reach higher notes a bit quicker. Because if you leave your sternum all the way down, the way for the yawning muscle is longer, it has to work harder, and that's why it can be a bit more difficult to reach these higher notes. So one position that helped me to find this movement a bit more easily is if you are in a very slight rounded position. So what I mean, for example, if you're sitting on a chair like I do, normally we were told to sit straight, and that's all good, you should do that. But in that moment, it actually helped me to, for example, put my hands on my knees in front of me, my knees are here, and go into a very slight back bend. Because this way you can really feel when you're lifting your sternum how something is happening between your shoulder blades. Because if you're very straight and you're maybe even back bending a little bit, it is really hard to find this opening up action between your shoulder blades. So make sure that you're not overextending towards the back, that you're not arching your back, because then it will be almost impossible to find this movement. And put your hands on your knees in front of you, go into a neutral, slightly rounded position, not a lot, just a tiny bit, and then make sure when you go up that you feel the expansion between the shoulder blades. And I hope that this video can help you to find the movement of the sternum that supports you when you are singing. You can use this movement whenever you are facing challenging notes. So the rule of thumb is the higher you sing, your higher your sternum should be. And on the other hand, the higher you sing, you lower your thyroid cartilage should be, or you should at least try to keep it on the same position. Anyway, I talk about these things in other videos on this channel already, so make sure you check out the playlist. I'm also going to put it in the description below. And I thank you so much for watching, guys. Make sure to like this video and subscribe to my channel. And also, if you're interested in working with me, make sure to click on the link below. It will take you to my website where you can book classes with me, online classes one-on-one, so we can work on extending your range, making the sound a bit more open, opening up your voice in general, and help you finding new sounds that you can use for your songs that you want to sing. Alright, thank you so much for watching. I see you guys in the next video. Take care and see you soon. Bye bye.